So I'm Phil McSweeney. Among other things, I'm a bid coach, a mentor, a bid writer. I'm a chair of a company, NED advisor, etc., author. But these last few years, I've worked with founders to help them enter competitions with Innovate UK, and have worked on fast grants, smart grants, and the biomedical catalyst grant. Biomedical catalyst is health related, and that's my area of expertise. And I've won a fast grant, and last week I was advised that I won a smart grant for somebody to a value of 330k. So I'm chuffed today. I feel unassailable. I feel like the Pierce Brosnan of grant writing today. I'm over the moon, because only about 5% of smart grants actually win the money. So I'm here to share some information just about the grant writing process, the benefits, and so on. And last year, the UKRI awarded 6,000 grants. 50% of those were via Innovate UK, to a value of 3.1 billion. So there is a lot of grant money knocking about if you are prepared or committed to apply for it. So why should you think about applying? On the plus side, it's non-diluting. It doesn't take any of your equity away. It's a great discipline. It's like writing a business plan, which I think, a lot of founders, when they pitch, have stopped bothering with. They go for the pitch deck instead. It creates teamwork, analytical skills, writing skills, précis, presentation, and so on. It's a real lift. The company I got the result from last week are absolutely over the moon to have won this money, and they have awarded me a long-term mentoring agreement with them. So I've not just helped them win the grant, I've got work. And investors like the fact that you've won if you're pitching for money, because they see they've already got some due diligence done by a bunch of Innovate UK assessors that have verified your work as well. But on the negative side, it takes time. You're going to end up writing a document that's about 30 pages long. It's detailed, it's meticulous, the success rate's not high. Smart grants are grants that a lot of people compete for because they're generic across the board. So plus or minus 5% are going to win. Other grants, they say, maybe 15% of the applicants win. And it's a bit demoralizing if you lose. And even if you win, you've still got to match fund, usually about 30% of what you're after. The good thing, though, is if you win and you're looking to secure investment, if you haven't got that 30%, you put yourself into a good position to secure investment from investors, because you've already got 70% of the money in the bag, and they're more likely to follow on than if you haven't got any money. So currently there's a competition open. You've got 19 days to apply. I wouldn't really advocate you beginning now if you haven't begun, because it is a lot of work. And I'll talk about the amount of work involved in a bit. But there'll be, these opportunities come along 2 or 3 times a year. So Smart Grant is a regular feature of Innovate UK. So you haven't missed the boat or anything. And you can apply for up to 500k if you're a single applicant or working in collaboration and want to deliver a project within 18 months. But if you definitely are collaborating with someone else, like a university or another partner or a charity, and you're going to take a bit more time, you can apply for up to £1 million. But the key thing is, and this is from what they say, and you have to read this. Innovate UK is investing 25 million in the best game-changing, world-leading ideas designed for swift, successful commercialization, and ideas need to be genuinely new. So I've broken those words out just so they're absolutely clear. The idea is judged usually by 3 to 5 judges, and they take the average scores of 3 to 5 judges. It's awarded out of 100 marks. Quite a lot of people get 80 marks. It sounds good, but it genuinely isn't good enough. The bid that I just helped secure for someone was a rebid. So you're allowed to apply twice. And in their first round, they got 80.6%. And they asked me to work with them, and I spent quite a lot of time rewriting the bid. And we got the bid up to 87.8%, and we were awarded. Now, I'm an assessor for Innovate UK, and I have to tell you that giving more than 9 out of 10 or 90% for a bid is like finding dinosaur eggs or hen's teeth. So in effect, I would say getting 87.8 is a mark out of 90, not out of 100, because hardly anybody ever gets 10 for any section of their bid. So it has to be, the best idea, the best written bid, obviously, game-changing, world-leading, swift, successful commercialization, and it has to be new. And there's a clue in the Innovate UK being called Innovate UK. It has to be innovative. And any idea that's a copycat, Me Too idea is never going to qualify. So just don't waste your time, because you won't be in scope for the award of the bid. So from their own work, in scope means, and I've just highlighted these bits in yellow, groundbreaking, innovative, significantly different, rapid commercialization, having a positive impact on the UK's position in the world, in the global economy, delivering significant economic input, return on investment, growth, and so on. They have to view that it's the right funding for you at this point in time. So if they think you're ready for angel investing because you've got revenue traction and so on, they're likely to take the view that you're beyond needing smart funding, because you could go out to the market and try to secure either angel investing or VC investment. So don't think you can apply, if you've already got a well-developed product out there that you're commercializing. It's for ideas rather than finished products or services. So they're looking for an excellent team with the skills that you've looked at risks that the project will face, and you develop a financial plan and a timeline for delivering the project. The bid itself, what you submit, you can write it yourself, or you can use professional grant writing companies. And increasingly, I see bids as an assessor which have been developed or written by grant writing companies. A couple come to mind, like Grantify or Granttree, for example. They are expensive. I was talking to a colleague who applied 2 years ago using a grant writing company, who wanted, this bit is not quite so expensive, £5,000 to write the bid for them, but then a 7% success fee. So if you applied for half £500,000, that would be £5,000 plus £35,000 success fee if you were successful. So on balance, I think grant-written bids, grant-written companies writing bids, on balance, usually put in a better bid than the majority of people write themselves, because they've got little experience of having done it. But I've seen and scored highly bids that I think have been written by individuals themselves. So this is the content of the bid. You have to begin by giving an overview of the project. That's not scored, and then there are 6 scored sections. So each one is scored out of 10, and then they multiply all that up and divide it through to give you an overall percentage. So there's a section about your idea and how innovative it is, and why is it game-changing and so on. As I've said before, it has to meet those in-scope criteria, and that's 600 words, and you can, or you must submit an appendix in support of that answer. So I've just shrunk that a bit too much. So that's just kind of repeating myself a bit more there. Then you have to justify why you need smart funding, which I've talked about. You're not ready to apply for a VC or angel investment, or they wouldn't look at it, you're too early. 400 words. Then you have to talk about the potential market, and as with any other business idea, if you're looking for funding, investors will be looking for there being enough market size out there and enough market interest out there for your product to get to product market fit. So they want to know what your route to market is, and the market's a decent size. And in that respect, it's no different to how you might pitch a business to angels for funding. So 400 words there. Then they're looking for you to describe the impact on you of receiving the grant, but not only you, but also what you're going to deliver. So this is where you get into your vision. What is this business going to actually achieve in the world, or change for customers as a result of you getting this grant? 600 words. Then how you're going to deliver the project, who's in the team, have they got the right skills and experience? You have to produce a project plan that's usually broken down into work packages. Who's going to do what? You submit a Gantt chart. How do all these work packages fit together? So that's a bit that you add to, but you've got 400 words for the bulk of it, and then a couple of attachments. The attachments are usually 2 sides of A4, no longer. And you also have to submit a risk register. That's another attachment of the key risks that your project faces, and how you're going to mitigate those risks. I usually suggest that you produce something that's got, the red, amber, green kind of approach to setting out a risk register. And lastly, you have to describe how it's going to give value for money. How does it represent good value for money for the taxpayer? So you have to submit a finance section, and what they're looking for in the value for money is that you're not greedy, you're not, charging the earth for subcontractors coming in, you're not being ripped off yourself, you're not paying through the nose for dev or marketing consultancy or whatever, it's got to look like reasonable value. So that's another 400 words. The finance section is mainly financial projections, spreadsheet over the period of time. And then the word count, I think those highlighted sections add up to 2,800 words. But then if you add in the appendices that you've got to write, you're probably in the order of maybe 6,000 to 7,000 words in total. Takes about, most bids I see are maybe 30 pages long. So a section then on how to begin or how to make a start. Like I said, if the one that's current and closes in 19 days, you'd have to work like stink to actually get, something in on time and for it to be good. So that's up to you. But begin with making a clear decision about whether you've got an in-scope idea and therefore you're not wasting your time. And if you think you have, give yourself time to prepare, write the bid. You can create a team of people from within your organization with the requisite skills to write each section of the bid, the 6 sections I mentioned above. Create a plan or a work program with milestones, what you're going to deliver, by the end of this week, next week, the week after, and so on. Everybody can do that kind of basic planning. Identify someone who's going to coordinate everybody else. Particularly if it's not you, you make sure that there is one clear named person to do that. And make sure you're giving the support to all of the people that are writing sections of the bid, making sure they've got the resources they need, that they understand what they need to do, that you're proofreading, what they've written, making suggestions as you go through, and so on. It's so important that you follow the guidance meticulously. Make sure you've addressed every single requirement within the guidance, and you don't leave out any gaps or leave any gaps in it. Going back to giving yourself time, I think it's great if you can get bid ready, pretty much finished, 2 weeks or so before the deadline that you've got to submit. And then that gives you that extra bit of time to polish and make the whole thing sing. And then I said submit on time. My advice generally is submit a couple of days early, because if there's any technical hitches, you've got time to address those, and make sure you've submitted on time. Now I've just put a couple of resources here. The second one is a link to the current Smart Grant bid, which you can have a look at all the details required for it, the criteria and so on, the eligibility, the scope. But the first one might be of interest because it's a directory of bid opportunities offered by the UKRI, not just in Innovate UK, but all of the other funding grants that they support. So you can find, and you can sort it by category, by time, by bids that are open, by bids that are coming up, and so on. It's a really good little resource if you if you're thinking about bidding, and you don't only have to go for smart grants. You know, I've seen grants for all sorts of sectors or specialties come along. You know, there's quite a lot at the moment on sustainability, for example, because it's, you know, of economic interest to the UK. Then I've said a little bit about how I work when it comes to helping people with making an application. So I don't work in quite the same way that Grantify or Granttree work. I don't write the whole thing for you. I work with applicants who are willing to write a best effort themselves first, and then I do my best to make it better. So, you know, I've said there's a 5%, maybe 10% chance that you'll be successful, and the difference between an overall mark of 80%, generally a fail, and 85%, you know, can be the bit that helps you win. So I work on first applications and failed first applications where someone has assessor feedback, and I bring my experience as an assessor for Innovate UK to that, and I've got a pretty good idea, having done that for 6-7 years now, you know, 2 or 3 times a year, of what great looks like. Then, you know, for anyone that's particularly interested in working with me at any time in the future, I just go into what I need, you know, by timelines to be able to help you. You know, I need to see what you're going to submit in full 3 weeks before the date, so that I can work on it, do a bit of polish on it. And I need to see some evidence of your ability to write 6 weeks before the deadline, so that I can make a decision about whether I think you've got a good chance of winning, or, you know, if I don't think you're in scope, then I'll suggest, you know, perhaps you're not in scope, so this bid is not worth putting in. Email address there if people are interested, and then this appendix just says what I want to see in terms of writing from people, for me to make a judgment about whether I can help them. So just going to finish by saying, or reiterating what I've said already, which is it is a really good opportunity to secure non-diluting grant money. It doesn't take equity, and it's worth a go if you can commit the time to actually do it. So that's me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Bill, that was fabulous. And if anyone wants intros or to contact you, we can do it via LinkedIn or come to us and we can do a quick intro.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Phil McSweeney. You'll find me, you know, quite prolific there. So
before I put the questions out to everyone, I've got something.
Sure.
Obviously, you're on the inside of Innovate UK. Right. Is there anything on the horizon you're seeing or hearing that they're going to become a little bit more founder friendly?
When you say founder friendly, do you mean, you know, can you ring them up and ask for guidance about, you know, whether you should submit or not, or
just making the grants a little bit more accessible, you know, cutting the red tape and bureaucracy down?
I haven't heard of any. I mean, I get, if I apply for a grant and I'm, you know, offered an assessor role for a particular competition or grant, then I get a briefing for that grant. And I've not heard anybody say that the process is going to change in any way.
Okay.
So,
and there's good reasons behind it. Obviously, it's public sector money. There's got to be some responsibility on how that's spent and dished out. But you know, the bridging the gap with founders who are busy, they are developing. They're obviously carrying a lot of responsibility themselves and a lot of weight on their shoulders. So,
yes.
Does it go far enough, the current arrangement?
I would say yes. I mean, I think it's, you know, it's public money, and you know they give out over 3 billion every year, so it's quite a chunk of money. But from a founder's perspective, it's understandable that you would like to think that there's more money available to apply for. But it isn't the only source of grant money that's out there, particularly charities, but also founders I know have targeted a lot of smaller grants. You know, there used to be grant money available from LEPs, you know, that are now transitioning across to county councils, you know, smaller pots of money, 5, 10, 15, 20K. There's European money still available from the EIC, I think it's called, which you can apply for, and you know those are significant pots of money. But I couldn't tell you what the success rate is for those. I tend only to work with Innovate UK.
Thanks,
but I've worked with them for many years, you know, and I've had some success, and I've known others to have some success too.
Thanks, Phil. Gareth.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up actually, on the founder friendliness question that you posed there, Ollie. I think there's a wider ecosystem that Innovate UK support, which is the EDGE program delivered by Newable and RTC North and Exemplas and all these partners that are conducive to preparation in readiness for a grant application. Phil, do you want to speak to that and how that plugs in and whether it's worth going through?
Yeah, I think it is worth going for. I've worked with a couple of companies that have worked with EDGE, or Innovate EDGE, I think they've been called, and they've got some quite long-term support, you know, several months from advisors, mentors as a result of that program. I don't think they've necessarily focused on helping you develop better bids, but they have helped the companies, couple that I've worked with, on just developing a better business. So worth having a look at, certainly, Gareth.
Here. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Gareth. Catherine.
Oh, sorry, I was off mute. I didn't realise that. Thanks for that, Phil. I've got a couple of questions that I wanted to ask. So nice to see you.
Hi, Catherine.
My question is there not a conflict of interest that you work on the inside and you're providing a service to the outside? I mean, is that not a bit grey?
If I sign up for a competition to be an assessor, I am advised that I absolutely cannot assess on any entry that I've had any involvement with whatsoever. So it's happened once where I was given the opportunity to assess an entry in a competition, and I'd never worked directly with the founders. I just knew a bit about them and what they were trying to do. So I went back to Innovate UK and said I declined to enter or declined to assess this particular entry in this competition. Yeah. There may well be people that are not as diligent or have the same integrity as I hope I've got. So,
because it is
that's a
something that,
possibility.
it's something that we see as founders, people who, I'm an assessor, I can help you. And it's one of those things where a bit of a poison chalice. So I've got a couple of other things I wanted to ask you. So you said idea stage as opposed to having something. So we applied for a SMART grant before we had the MVP, and the feedback we got was more or less we needed to be at that next stage before we applied, so it had to be more than an idea.
Right.
So that's sort of different. That feedback's very different to what you were saying this morning. And the other thing, so I've got three things that's all sort of tied up in the one thing. So the ideas versus MVP, actually having already secured funding. So is that an absolute, that's a strike through if you've already received angel funding, that you wouldn't be put forward? Because, you know, I've seen some companies who are further down the road than, I mean, quite considerably further down the road than we are, having received Innovate UK funding, and they've also had angel. So it'd be good to have that clarified. And the other thing is just to give a bit of feedback on the feedback we got from our submission. It was so conflicting. The 4 assessors, I mean, it was almost like a 50-50 split of 2 loved, 2 hated. And that wasn't particularly helpful to get that, because it was like, you know, because we were writing the bid to win, keeping the integrity of the company as much as we possibly could, but obviously you pitch to win, so you give it, you know, your best shot. And that wasn't helpful. How can we as founders deal with things like that? Because the discussion ends there with the feedback. And and when you feed that back and say, do you know what, this isn't helpful, it's just a bit of, well, do you know what, is that sour grapes because it's tough luck? And it wasn't.
No, I don't think it's sour grapes, but I think it comes back to Ollie's question about, you know, founder friendliness. So, you know, I'll give you one example from my own experience of the bid that I just, you know, helped win. Because it was a second submission, I was in the fortunate position of having all of the assessor feedback on their first bid to take a view on whether I, you know, or what I needed to change or improve on for the second bid. And there were 3 assessors, and there were 2 assessors that were quite pro the bid, and one that was rather less pro. So, you know, for each section you might get 8, 8 and 6, for example, you know, and it was kind of quite consistent, you know, and it's a bit like watching the Strictly scores come up, and what's his name, Craig, you know, always marks down everyone else, you know, whatever. So they're, you know, they're all individuals, they all have their own views or opinions and whatever. And what Innovate UK does, it doesn't tell assessors ever, as far as I'm aware, to kind of, you know, buck up, moderate, you know, come into line, whatever. They just give you the assessor's feedback. But if there is one assessor that's completely out of line, they might not include their score in the averaging of all the scores, so that you get like 4 out of 5 rather than an average of 5 out of 5 if one is wildly out, for example. So then going back to your previous question about timing, I would say I've seen exactly the same as you. I have seen bids that have come in where the bid is quite down the track of being commercialized, and I score the bid as if it were, you know, pucker, etc. And then in my feedback, I feed back to Innovate UK this bid looks like it's already secured angel funding, VC funding. I'm not sure if it qualifies or in scope. And then it's their decision as to whether they want to award money or not. I have no power to influence that decision. All I can say is what they say in their guidance is that they are looking for you to justify why you need public funding for this. And you may be able to make a justification that you need public funding alongside existing angel investment. Guidance I get usually tells me that they are looking for people that are not necessarily yet ready to, go out to the market for funding. Whether they stick to their own guidance, I have no control over.
Okay, interesting. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you very much, Catherine Ann. Laura.
Okay.
Morning, Phil. It's lovely to meet you in person. We've chatted on LinkedIn before.
Hi, Laura. Yeah.
And if anyone hasn't got Phil's book, I have, and I think it's brilliant. So I'm just going to plug that for you.
Thank you for the plug. Yeah, cheers.
So I've got a few questions, and actually very, I know I didn't come with my prop. Very similar to some of Catherine Ann's, and I think some of my thoughts have maybe been answered by that discussion, but really along the same kind of line that we are well past MVP. The thing that we've built, we know that other people have attempted it. So people have had certainly components of the idea that we've had, and what we've done is proven that it's technically possible, which was one of the big areas it fell down on. So just really thinking about how to handle that. But I suppose what I've learned from the conversation you had with Catherine Ann is it's about the explanation you give, and similarly with the justification for funding, because I think that part feels to me to be inherently conflicting, which is you're not ready for private funding, but we're only going to give you 70%, and then you will be ready for private funding.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think there's a bit of nuance in all of these, in all of these pieces. I suppose my other question was around the process. So when you get that feedback, do you have the same set of assessors for your second shot? So are you really answering the questions that they've posed, or do you then get like a fresh set of eyes that are thinking, well, why have you written it like this? And it sort of links into this other question I had around your point about not copycatting. What's the word?
Yeah.
But this, I think sometimes founders are encouraged in that shorthand of trying to get their innovation to be easily understood by an audience. An almost natural thing to do is to compare it to something else that's in the market so that people can get a quick framework. But I'm just wondering whether your advice is to steer very clear of that kind of approach of not comparing. So just those stylistic bits, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. I think your first question about a certain irony of you're not ready to go out for funding, but we'll only give you 70% and you've got to fund 30% yourself, is, I suppose I'd call that a test of your resourcefulness.
Yeah.
If someone's given you 70% of the money, a resourceful person is going to be able to go out and find the other 30% if they haven't got it themselves. The second question, sorry, I've lost the thread of what your second question was, Laura.
Sorry, it was around whether it was the same assessors for the second round.
No, it's not. So again, I'll give you an example. The bid I've just worked on, they had 3 assessors, and each section was given a mark out of 10. And I got the feedback for that. And then I got the feedback the other day on the second one. and one of the 6 sections actually, although I'd worked on it and significantly improved it, got a lower score the second time round than it did the first time round. And I thought, you know, these can't be the same people, because they, you know, when I've once or twice I have worked on a bid that I know is a second submission, because they've actually said so in their bid, but I have never seen the first submission. And you had a third point.
It was about the copycat point of whether we sort of make comparisons to.
Should you call yourself the Uber of something, or the Airbnb of something, or whatever? Or I think if you're, whatever you're trying to do, those little kind of gimmicks, I suppose, in terms of, you know, trying to help people understand what it is you do. Sometimes they help, sometimes they just make me think that you've or that you've significantly underestimated what actually Uber is, or the Airbnb is, that you've only captured a part of it. So I remember somebody telling me they'd set up a mobile barbers, and they wanted to raise money to you know, launch a business, you know, where they bought vans and went around and cut people's hair. And they were calling themselves the Uber of barbering or something. And I thought, well, Uber is something more than, you know, a home visiting service that cuts your hair. It's actually enabling, you know, anybody that can cut hair to come and visit you, not just a small group of people that are part of who's sign on. It's the tech, you know, that is the Uber of it, not as much as it is the service. So, and I think if you're going to launch, you know, a copycat of, you know, that there are so many copycat type businesses around, like, you know, mental health and well-being apps, or recycling fashion, for example, that they're not really delivering much that's new into the market. So, you know, why would you fund just another one of something that there's an oversupply of already?
And on that point, do you mind if I sort of follow up with something? To what extent do you think does Innovate UK? One of the things that we're very proud of on the team is that the Life Sciences Department of the government reviewed our solution. And came back extremely positively. We have in writing a number of times, this is a complete innovation. This is the nirvana of healthcare. As we look at this bid process, and it's a really interesting one, because even on our pitch deck, we have that. And sometimes then we have questions from investors, you know, which is perfectly fine, about who else is like you? And it's there sort of very clearly that we've got this badge of honor to say, wow, you've really found some kind of white space here. From an Innovate UK perspective, are those kinds of quotes powerful? Do they do the job, or do we still, you know, need to, where, as you look at your 400 words, where's the best? Would they rather make the decision themselves, or look at that and say, okay, that's our job?
I would say if you've got that testimonial, and it's not too long in words, then put it in. And it's, you know, and you have to bear in mind that it's not Innovate UK making this decision. It's 3 individual assessors with their unique bits of expertise that they're bringing to, you know, scoring your entry. And some of them, you know, 1 or 2 of them may know that you're unique, and 1 or 2 of them may not know enough about your space to know whether you're unique or not. So give them the evidence, spell it out for them, And if they're of a mind, you know, they can always go away and do a bit more research and say, you know, who else is doing something like what Laura McDonald's doing? What I would say, you know, and this is the amount of pay you get for scoring an entry in a competition is not great, and you can't expect the assessors to spend a great deal of time assessing or researching outside of what you put in your entry. You know, if you get 100 odd quid or so for, you know, spending 3 hours on something, it's, you know, it's not a great deal of money. So, you know, although I'm sure they do their diligent best, they're not going to spend an inordinate amount of time on it. So best to be absolutely clear and precise about what it is you want them to know in your bid.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Laura.
Thanks, Laura. Ariana. From you.
Thanks for the presentation. It was really informative. Given what you've just been talking about, the variations of scoring in a way, is there some sort of barometer or benchmark for scoring? Because it seems to have room for individual nuancing interpretation in the way that you've said. You've done you put in a submission, it's come back, you've resubmitted it, and then got less of a score on the second time because you had a different set of evaluators or scorers. That seems a bit precarious, it feels, because you sort of end up sort of being dependent on who you're actually getting on the day, and are they receptive to your market sector or not. Just seemed a bit, you know, all that effort, all that work, yours included, and it comes down to 3 people who are paid by the hour who either get your business or don't. It seems a bit I don't know, it seems like it lacks the sort of benchmark of scoring, really.
What you get as an assessor for each competition is a scoring crib sheet, if you like, which says in bands for each of the 6 sections that you have to submit. An answer that scores between 0 and 2 will, you know, be like this, or will have missed out this. An answer between 3 and 4 is like this, or misses out this, or fails to do this. Between 5 and 6, it's like this. Between 7 and 8, it's like this, and between 9 and 10, it's like this. And it's only a paragraph, but it gives you a steer as to, you know, what you either should be looking for or what the answer will fail to have done. So it's not particularly difficult, if you know what you're looking for, to be able to say, is this a 4 or is it a 7? Or
although there does seem to be room for interpretation from what you've told
absolutely
us.
You know, I suspect, you know, in time we will get AI looking at people's submissions and sort of saying, you know, there's a first screen. You know, it's not dissimilar to you applying for a job. You know, you think you're brilliant and you write your CV and your covering letter, and then you get screened out because you haven't put in certain keywords, for example.
Thank you.
Thanks, Oriana. Lee.
Yeah, I suppose one of the things that I am aware of, because obviously I talk to a number of founder communities and listening WhatsApp groups and all of that. I think it was a couple of months ago, there was an award for the Innovate UK, and it was a very low amount of people who applied versus who got the grants, which I think is fairly commonplace, and certainly seeing your criteria, I understand why that is. I think a lot of the frustration from founders, though, is because they are encouraged to apply. So whether that's Innovate UK themselves, or maybe assessors, or maybe people who are big writers, are telling founders, oh yeah, sure, apply for everything. And then obviously it is a lot of work and a lot of time investment for something that actually you're not near that criteria. Is there a benefit for Innovate UK to encourage everyone to apply, even knowing how strict their criteria is?
Is there a benefit to them? Well, yes, because hopefully they'll get the best applications from a bigger pool of applicants. Is there a benefit to you, to founders? Well, absolutely. You know, and I spelled out many of the pluses in you know what I said earlier, and I'd say there's we're talking about the wider circus here, aren't we? The ecosystem. You know, there are so many people in the circus encouraging along performers, whether they are the best performers or not, because there's earning in it for them, you know, whether they're advisors, mentors, founders, accelerators, whatever. They're all, you know, they're all getting something out of, you know, a pot of money that either founders do or don't have, or they've won from investors or grant awarders or whatever. And you know, the professional bid writing companies would say, you know, that they've helped people win millions and millions of pounds out of this 3.1 billion every year or so that gets awarded by Innovate UK. But they've made it, you know, understandably, they've made a business out of it. You know, people make a business out of success fees for helping you find angel investment. People make a business out, you know, I do, you know, mentoring and advising or coaching people. They're not always necessarily the best candidates. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think it's the perception. Like, I think I've had a number of clients who have been approached, and it's the approach is very much nudge, nudge, wink, wink, you should apply for that. And that's what the issue is. Like, I think that exposure to knowing that the grant is available is fantastic, but it's the perception when founders have got a million other things to do. It's how much value is there in having that kind of response from people, because they then think, well, if I don't go for it, am I shooting myself in the foot? But actually, how far through the process they realize that they were never special. They weren't on someone's list somewhere that, you know, oh, we know that you as a company is going to be a good bet. And as advisors, and companies that offer services to founders, we're not doing ourselves any favors by doing that. You know? And I think some of the feedback on this call has been part of that.
I don't know if I've not come across any evidence or example of Innovate UK themselves approaching founders saying you should apply for a grant. Whether they do or they don't, I don't know. I've just never discovered it.
They definitely do. I've had two clients who have been approached directly.
Well, okay, you know, and you know, if they do, they do, and how they decide, you know, who to approach, I don't know. You would like to think that they are researching, you know, the most you know, game-changing, innovative ideas out there that they want, you know, that they think might be good for the UK economy and so on. I don't know that, but I wouldn't be surprised if grant writers, you know, are approaching all and sundry, because you know, it's revenue for them.
Yeah. No, I understood. It was more specifically the Innovate UK, the people themselves approaching founders that I was querying. But thanks, Phil.
Okay, one sec. I need to plug in my charger.
Thanks, Lee. had some great questions for Field this morning.
Yeah. Right.
And I think Laura's got the last one for us.
And just a super quick one. Are you limited to 2 applications per company? So you've got one shot, then a resubmit, and then that's it?
Yes, you are. But, you know, I don't know how successful they've been, but I have come across people saying they've had their 2 goes and then they're going to try and tweak their idea and make it sound like something a bit different, and then have another go, you know, 6 or 12 months later, in the hope that Innovate UK won't spot the join, as it were. So